Before I can remove the transmission, I have to remove the airbox and the Pulse air system components that were inside. I also had to remove the battery box, and I had to remove the swing arm with the drive shaft because I've got to have enough room to slide the transmission back to get it up and out of the frame, and with the swing arm there you don't have enough room. So those are the basic components that have to come out to get the transmission out. Of course, the other thing that has to be removed is the speedometer cable, but on my bike it was already among the missing anyway. So I'm ready to remove the transmission, but before I do that, I'm going to clean up the rear here. It is really grungy, and I always prefer to work on something that's not filthy. So that's a lot better, and it'll be much easier to remove the clutch throwout arm off the back of the transmission without all that grunge and goop in the way. Now the clutch throwout arm sits in this boss here that's cast into the back of the transmission cover, and it's a 6mm bolt that I've loosened. So you just undo it and pull it out, and then the arm is free. Now the back of the arm has a bolt which pushes on a rod that is used to open up the clutch plates, and it fits inside a rubber cover, so you can just pull the arm right out. And this is the end of the bolt that pushes on the clutch push rod, and then I can remove the rubber cover, which is secured by a clamp on this side. Now that I've got the clamp off, the rubber cover comes off, and underneath it is a return spring. This one's kind of bent, so I'm going to replace it. And then there's a sleeve here, and underneath it is a bearing race. So I use a magnet to pull the sleeve loose so I can get to it. And then here's the little bearing race that fits inside. Now the reason for that is that the clutch rod is spinning, and so this allows it to turn inside the cover. So I'm ready to remove the shift linkage and the shift lever off of the transmission lever. Now the linkage is secured onto the transmission lever with a cup that fits over a ball, and that's held in place by a bail, and you can catch the end of it with your screwdriver and get it to slide around like this, so it'll pop out of its groove, and then you just pull it straight down. So that's the little bail, and then you pry the cup off of the ball to get it loose. So I popped the cup off the ball, and the linkage just drops down, so I can remove it by removing this pivot bolt. I used an Allen to get the pivot bolt loose, and just back it out, and comes right out, and that's where the shift lever rides, is on that pivot, so that also needs lubrication. And then here on the back side of the shift lever is another cup and ball that connect the linkage to the shift lever, so I'll remove that and clean it up. Now to remove the lower left transmission bolt, there's not a lot of clearance, so I like to use a cut down 6mm Allen, and I can get that in there and get the bolt to start backing out. And generally, after you get it broken loose, it's just finger tight, and you can jet it to back out. So there we go. and it'll just clear, the head of the bolt just clears this rib. It's a very tight fit, and that's the lower left transmission bolt. Now on the lower right side of the transmission, there's an Allen bolt that goes all the way through and is secured by a nut with a wave washer on the bell housing of the engine. So when I remove that, I should be able to pull the transmission off of the clutch. Now that all the bolts and nuts are loose, and by the way, these upper bolt and upper nut, those all come off when you take the airbox off. So all I need to do is slide it back like this, and then there's a push rod inside that I'm going to push out the back, and then I can swing the transmission out of the frame. So the transmission's out, and this was the push rod that pushes on the clutch. This end is what goes on the clutch plate, and then this end was where that bearing I removed earlier that was underneath the rubber cover fits. Now if you look here, you'll see that the input to the transmission is splined, and that mates with the splines on the clutch plate here. Now those need to be lubricated periodically with a molybdenum disulfide sticky grease if you want to have a smooth operating clutch and smooth shifting transmission. So we're down to just getting the engine out of the frame.